Was good, yeah. It's time for the highly anticipated Hattsut guide, obviously dubbed the Queen of War. So let's get straight into it. And so for this one, I've decided to do it a bit differently. And you can give me your feedback if you like the way I approach this, or if you hate it, if you wanted to change something, because I'm still not quite certain how I really wanna do it. But this whole everything you're going to see, the whole assets with the sets, the stats, you're going to find a link in the description as well as in the pinned comment to use that for yourself, or find a way to take a screenshot of it, download it, whatever you really want to do with it. So let's get straight into Hatsit stats. I know you're used to just seeing it in game, but yeah, let's look at the stats. So left side is going to refer to armor and weapon, and for the left side we have three possible choices when we're talking about early game, which is going to be the Whirlwind, Calamity, and the Annihilating Mindset. Honestly, all of those are fine, and what's really important is just the substats. And for the substats, very simply, you just need attack percent as well as crit percent. Attack percent and crit percent is all you need on your weapon or on your armor in the early game. And if you find crit damage, attack speed, or attack, that's really just a bonus. Now, obviously, onto the right side gear. So for the right side, you can just use a broken set, symbolized by this cut through Hawkeye set, and let's have a look at stats. So you have pretty much three possible options. Option number one is going to be triple attack percent, option number two is double attack percent, 1 times crit damage, and option number three is going to be just straight up crit percent. And right here we have the substat that you're going to be looking for, which is for attack percent, very simply just crit percent, for crit damage, attack percent and crit rate, and for crit percent, attack percent and crit damage. And all of those other stats, be it rage region, crit damage, attack speed, are all really just going to be bonus. Which brings us to the next part, which is going to be stats. Now, stat wise, right here we have just the normal early game Hatsit, which is going to be around 8000 attack, 91% crit rate, and 66% crit damage. And in general, if you're looking for stats, if you're still trying to build an early game Hatsit, you're going to be looking for at least 200% attack, between 0 to 100 attack speed, 85% to 90% plus crit rate, and then a total of just over 30% crit damage. Onto artifacts, the top choices are easily going to be Keen Wisdom, just because it boosts your overall attack percent, then Idrit's Gaze for the defense ignore. If you don't have access to either of those, or if they're already on other characters, you can use a Shadow Gaze, or what the if you don't have access to either of the two because you don't have them or used on other characters, you can use a Shadow Gaze or Broken Nightmare as the second best options. And then for the third one, it's really going to be the Watch Guards one, because it's only against aerial units. And then the epic one, which is rather disappointing in effect, but still better than no artifact at all. Now that we've talked about the early game, let's have a look at mid game, which is again going to be the same thing. But let's again start from the left side, go to the right side. Same options: Whirlwind set, Calamity set, Annihilating Might set. Substats we have for the weapon and the armor. You're looking on the weapon for attack percent, crit rate, so the same thing as for early game. But here, if you can find it, you should already start looking for attack speed, and then as a bonus, crit damage or rage region, but those stats do only really appear on ancients. Same goes for the armor with, again, attack percent, crit rate, crit damage as a substat, and then bonus stats are going to be attack speed, rage region, or attack flat. Crit damage can be found on any armor, and it's something you should be really looking for because it's quite a big of a power spike. Attack flat could also happen on your armor, but attack speed and rage region are again going to be ancient exclusive. Now, for the right side, we kind of have categories. If you have the choice, you always really want to use the Night Terror set. Night Terror set is just the best out of the bunch. Then we have kind of like the second rate category, and which is going to be the AoE set, the Curse set, or the Fracture set. And then for the last, we have the Wisdom set, which only works for her ultimate, but it's not too bad because Hatsut's ultimate does come up quite often. Then we have the Fatality set for the extra attack increase and the defense ignore. And then lastly, we have the Hawkeye set, where you do need 1.2 second attack interval. And also furthermore, for the Curse set to really work, you gotta keep in mind that there need to be 6 enemies in range. And for the AoE set, only Hatsut's ultimate is considered AoE. But enough of the sets, let's have a look at the stats. Starting from mid game, you only really have two choices. Either you go with full attack percent still, or you go with 2%, 2 attack percent, 1 times crit damage. Substat wise, for attack percent, you really want to look for crit percent and crit damage, and then attack speed as a bonus if you already have it. And then on top of that, otherwise, besides the 3 mentioned stats, attack and rage region again are just icing on the cake. For crit damage, again, also attack percent and crit rate. Attack speed is still not important enough, and then bonus, it's going to be again attack and rage region. So now for the obviously again nicer part, right here you have an example of how a Hattsut is going to look in the mid game, and then stat wise it's again the same numbers but just slightly higher. Attack stays the same of again around 200%. The attack speed you should start to aim for around 100 to up to 200 attack speed. Crit rate 90 to 100%, and then crit damage anything around 90% is perfectly fine. As you can see right here, we had an 119% and then a bit more attack than actually needed. Artifact wise, nothing really changes besides a couple more options coming into the fold and a couple dropping down. So for example, Keen Wisdom isn't one of the best options anymore, it's only second rate, and Shadow Gaze and Broken Nightmare are really falling out of favor. But Aegis Gaze, Hatsut's exclusive artifact, Aureate Visage, and Bloodborne Signet are all three very, very good options. And out of those, you can't really pick favorites, all of them are going to work perfectly fine. Besides, obviously, if you're running a Bloodborne Signet, it makes sense to run, for example, the triple attack percent main stat version, so you have more from the added crit damage, or in general, really do not try to run double crit damage because you're just going to get way more crit damage. Lastly, Hattsut endgame, again, left side first. So now what you might be wondering is, oh, why is the whirlwind set not there anymore? And that is because you're going to get the whirlwind set from substats anyways, and the added benefit of the attack speed isn't going to be as noticeable anymore. And that is because starting from around 250, the value of attack speed just drops significantly. So stat wise, you're really looking for attack percent, crit rate, and then either attack speed or crit damage on your weapon, with the bonus being rage region if you do find it, but it's really, really hard to find 4-stat perfect weapons. Armors are a bit easier, which is going to be at least attack percent, crit rate, and then either crit damage or attack speed if it's an ancient, and then for the bonus rage region or attack, even though you really are more likely to find the attack percent, crit rate, crit damage, and flat attack armor. Then set-wise, you have kind of, again, the two categories. Preferred are either Ageless Wrath or Soulbound Arcana. Ageless Wrath is going to be the most effective artifact for your Hattsut until you're able to trigger your ultimate 3 times. As long as you can trigger your ultimate 3 times, Soulbound Arcana is going to overtake Ageless Wrath, but before that, Ageless Wrath is superior, so you kind of need to weigh up how long this content is going to take, and then even in the end game, Night Terror is still a very viable option, and you kind of have again the same main stat options, even though they're slightly different. So if you're running Ageless Wrath, I really recommend using 2 times attack percent and 1 times crit damage, because you're going to get the added crit damage from the Ageless Wrath set. So you really want to make use and try to stack more attack. And if you're running Soulbound Arcana, and especially if you're playing Guild Boss, running 2 times crit damage and a single time attack percent is going to be the way to go if you're looking for the most damage. And also on the note of 2 times crit damage, if you can actually guarantee a Dolores buff, then you're definitely very fine to go with just added crit damage. Substat wise, we kind of have the same thing, but you're really looking for at least crit percent, crit damage, and attack speed, with bonus being attack, flat, or rage region. And on crit damage, you're really looking for attack percent, crit rate, and attack speed with, again, the same bonuses. So do make sure that at least when you consider building an endgame build, you really need all those 4 stats on your pieces. As but not least, again, on the right side, we have an endgame Hattsut. In this case, it is going to be 182% crit rate, crit damage, 100% crit rate, a bit of rage region, 270 attack speed, and around 9,400 attack. The reason why the attack is so high is because this is an Ageless Wrath set, even though you can't quite see it here. Substat wise, even if you can't exactly build what you're seeing here, this is what you're going to be looking for. At least around 225% attack, around 200 to 300 attack speed, 95 to 100% crit rate, 150% crit damage, and around 0 to 40% rage regen, because the rage regen really isn't all that important. And once again, you're going to find all those slides here in the description, be it in the pinned comment or in the first link. And now it's time to show off Hattsut in-game. Which isn't quite true, because we're still missing artifacts, so let's get the artifacts out of the way real quick. So the only real change is the fact that now the bottom artifacts fell away. You can still use Keen Wisdom, but I really wouldn't recommend it. And then out of all those, depending on what you have the highest, everyone is going to be fine, and your Hattsut is going to be able to do what she's supposed to do. But tip-wise, when it comes to Guild Boss, you shouldn't be using Idrit's Gaze, because Idrit's Gaze doesn't work with Guild Boss, or when it comes to low resistance content in general. But when it is time for endgame content, so for example, high gear rate 3, high gear rate 1, Idrit's Gaze is really strong, Bloodborne Signet is alright, and Aureate Visage, you always gotta keep in mind it only works if your Hattsut is invisible. Now it's time to actually talk about where she's useful. Onto gear rate 121, Hattsut showcase. Let's go through the units real quick. Wrath, not really geared. I mean, technically geared, but we're not going to use them. Hattsut is going to be running Soulbound Arcana set with obviously pretty decent stats, but it also is about to be expected because we're running 121. And artifact wise, we're rocking in Idrit's Gaze. Next off, Arrogance. Arrogance also pretty good gear, but he's not really gonna play a main role, and he has more of a focus on attack instead of crit damage, because we're not going to have him in range of Dolores. Then we have Volker. Volker isn't going to be used besides her reducing the spawn time of a Laurel. Iona's gonna be our secondary damage dealer, and she's gonna be rocking some pretty good Soulbound Arcana gear and 25 Tear of Twilight as an artifact. Then your standard guild boss hollow with a lot of attack speed, rather low attack, high healing effect, and then high rage regen. If the rage regen could be a bit higher, it would be preferred, but I mean 134% is already good enough. Next off, Mary. Mary with a pretty normal attack speed, rage regen, and some HP build, so just so she doesn't instantly die. Dolores has a pretty... she doesn't even have that good of a set, so let's actually fix that by giving her an invigoration set with good stats. Obviously that's not needed, you can get your invigoration buffs otherwise, for example through Volker. Laurel also obviously invigoration set, and let's have a look at our Meadow Sage right here. Also good enough stats, maybe... yeah, nah, should be fine. Alright, so gear rate 121 time Hattsut one-man show. Obviously not quite, because Iona is always or also there. But yeah, let's get into it. Hattsut obviously in first, Dolores in to give an invigoration buff to Hattsut. And on Dolores, as you might have seen, we have a Tumultuous Horn, which is just a mistake on my part because I still have it equipped. So just go ahead, use a Keen Wisdom, and you're gonna be more than fine. And then yeah, obviously Laura in, so we can boost the last one with invigoration set, which is going to be Iona. By this point, obviously, you can also swap out Arrogance for anyone else really, or anyone melee fighter. What you really want to look for is high attack, so you don't really need the Dolores buff. And also, if you have her, you can also just swap in Lust, which is kind of an obvious swap in if you do not have Arrogance. Yeah, so by this point we're just going to wait for Hollow's ultimate to get ready. It's pretty much just so we don't lose too much of the rage given by removing Laurel. So yeah, a Hollow ready, take her out, and then just trigger our ultimates, as well as then bring in Elwyn for even more rage regen, though she isn't as crucial for this fight succeeding. And then right here already just trying to eliminate as many enemies as possible, and Arrogance on the left side, just so we can kind of make up for the fact that she doesn't reach all the way, and Iona doesn't have to take care of the left side all by herself. Here we're again going to hold out a bit, so our ultimates are ready. And it's pretty much just rinse and repeat, spam ultimates, stack up Soulbound Arcana set, make your heroes as strong as possible, and then continue. But yeah, right here, this is going to be probably the most dangerous wave, so we're going to let them go in, come in close, activate Iona, activate Hattsut, take out Laurel, activate Dolores, Hollow, put in both our Nightmare units to boost the attack speed. And then yeah, as soon as we have Hatsut's ultimate ready again, we're going to trigger it in the hopes of keeping the damage shortfall to a minimum, because that's what gives us the most chance of success, yeah. And pretty much just makes the last wave that much safer. Yeah, right here we can just take care of those AoE units. It's not really needed, but again, we're just mainly stacking Soulbound Arcana set. Laura again goes in, just waiting to be summoned out. And also obviously there to just again give that 20% damage buff if you use an ultimate while Laura is on the field. Hollow. Yeah. So here we're gonna need to be a bit more surgical with our ultimates. So just as the enemies move in, we can just activate our ultimates like normally. And then right here, we already want to activate Hollow's ultimate. Take out Laurel, activate Mary. And just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna bring in the Wood Elf on Hattsut, just so no one really dies. Besides, obviously, forgetting Mary on the left side. So, yeah. Please do not forget about Mary on the left side. She is actually quite important, and just ult with Elwyn a bit earlier. But yeah, at least we were able to save our right side. So that's at least part of an achievement. But this is just going to make the wave a bit harder. And my general tip would be, don't let Mary die. You're gonna find more success in Gear 121. Especially because the earlier waves are that much more crucial, because you can freeze way more targets with Mary. But yeah, by the time we can now bring her back in, we've already taken obviously significant damage to our wall, but it's far from unmanageable. And then we're just gonna ult cycle through and freeze with Mary for the first time. And I guess why not? We can bring in Wrath just to deal some extra bit of damage. It's not gonna be huge, but he'll do his job. And freeze again with Mary. Obviously, like I said, if you can keep Mary alive, if you can just focus on ulting on all sides, keeping everyone alive, your life is gonna be way, way, way easier. So yeah, right here again, time to bring in Laurel, but this time we're not gonna remove her so early, because we would just waste the extra rage and waste the opportunity of getting some extra damage on our ultimates, which is why we just waited a bit right here. And then we can just ult again, hope to kill everything as fast as possible. Which leaves us with around, I don't know, is it one? One enemy, two enemies, somewhere in between there. Freeze again, bring in Wrath, activate Iona's ultimate, activate Hatsut's ultimate. Everyone is dead, the boss is not gonna heal, the boss is not gonna break through the wall, and voila, we were able to actually beat 121 using Hatsut, Iona, and then a bit of Erdogan's side support. So yeah, obviously if you have a Torador, this is gonna be easier. If you don't have a Torador, I mean, you can still do it. As you can see, we were only using Wrath. And also, very important, if you have Boreas, Viana, Lycia, Karmet, all of those, maybe even a Demi. If you have any of those good AoE mages, just use them instead of Iona, and it's gonna be a way easier time. Let's have a look at the damage numbers. Hattsut with the very solid 130 million, Arrogance also not to be underestimated with 40 million, and in Iona doing pretty solid for herself without a lot with the casual 80 million damage. So yeah, mistakes were made. Number 1, don't let Mary die. Number 2, change the artifact from your Dolores. And on the note of artifacts, because I think I forgot to talk about it, use a Idrit's Gaze on your Hattsut. Alright, Hattsut 221 time, and honestly, the set choice you're going to pick here isn't really going to matter. Sorbonne Arcana is going to work, Ageless Wrath is going to work, even probably Infernal Roar might work, Night Terror is a good choice. And artifact wise, just use an Idrit's Gaze. It just makes killing the boss easier, and also you can go higher in crit rate, lower in attack percent. So technically you don't even need this much attack. But yeah, if you're curious, here are the sets that we're going to use on our Hattsut. The rest is pretty much the same, and yeah, if anyone's interested, let's have a look at the Vortex stats. Give him some gear. Let's just use this artifact right here. And yeah, Vortex stat wise, we have decent attack speed, rather low attack for Vortex, and then rather high healing effect, and then a bit of Rage Regen, but that's not really going to come into play. And yeah, unit wise, there's an interesting part about Hattsut. So either you have it, if you have it, Tumultuous Horn, you can take out Laurel and just place in someone else to deal with the earlier waves, like for example Silas, Arrogance, Lust, whoever. And if you don't have it, you can just put in Laurel, because you're going to need her to have to make sure that Dolores Rage is ready. So I'm gonna kind of show both ways of clearing the stage, even though it's technically only one. But I don't really want to play the same fight twice, even though the outcome is gonna be the same. So yeah, right here we're just going to bring in our Hattsut, already bring in our cost generator, and wait for this guy to pass half the tile, let him move back, have his fun with Decimus, activate Hattsut's ultimate, take out Decimus, and then yeah, Hattsut is able to just deal with the first wave by herself. And because we are imagining us to not have a Tumultuous Horn, we're also going to use Delin to get us some extra cost. So we're just going to have her on the field, and then obviously remove her. So yeah, here timing wise, it's rather simple. You're going to wait for the boss to hit the ground 3 times. Once he hits the ground 3 times, you can place in Decimus. Main reason is that your Decimus is not going to survive long enough if you place him earlier, just because of the way that his invulnerability only lasts for a certain amount of seconds and the enemies just walk past. So yeah, right here we can just place an Oleg, already place in Hattsut, place in Dolores, and then really go all out. So yeah, right here you can see Dolores being fully ready, and for the first wave also it's not really that important, but we're just going to imagine us actually having to use Laurel. So we're going to use her. But yeah, honestly, with Hatsu, the stage is super easy. You're just going to activate your Dolores ultimate, wait for the enemies to move into her range, activate her ultimate, and everything's just gonna disappear. Also, as soon as you activate Hatsut's ultimate, you can just remove the tanks. It just makes placing the tanks for the next phase a bit simpler. But also Hatsut just kills them super fast, so you don't really notice it anyway. So yeah, right here you don't really need to wait for any timing. You're just gonna place the tanks anytime before the enemies crash into them. And here you let them go through. The important part is that you wait for those squiggly lines, or the ones that show that they are traveling at a certain velocity, to appear, because if they don't, they're just going to melee your units instead of tackling into them, and that's not really something you want. Right here we're just going to bring in our tanks, And by the time they cross this tile, that's when you place your vortex, and also you face him away so he can focus on healing himself instead of needing to focus on actually healing your allies. And even though it looks close, even with the extra benefit of us needing to place Laura to get her ultimates ready, we can just place her in, also activate the ultimate right here. Important to note, my Isolde at the moment doesn't really have any gear, so for you it shouldn't be as close, but even if it is, you can just activate Hattsut, and right there she's going to take care of everything. So yeah, now last streak. For the last streak, the easiest is to just take the tank here of the two invulnerability units, which is going to be Baron. And then again, wait for the third hit, so a bit also for the shockwave. Come on, there we go, right here. And also, if you're wondering if you can replace Baron, yes, Regulus or Brock here, if you have those and don't have a Baron, can also replace. So right here, that's the part. You need to wait for those lines to also appear on the enemy right here. He's at the moment still moving, and that's not something we want, so we're just going to wait for him to get those lines. There we go. Now everyone's charging into our units, and then we're fine. Right here, it's a Decimus time just to stop the boss. Bring in Vortex. So anyone's alive, and then the boss is going to smash the ground 16 times. And why that is so good is because it actually just buys us enough time. If you're playing it with Hattsut and everyone else and playing them multiple times, placing all the tanks and also placing Laura, it's gonna be expensive, so you kinda really need to face here at the end when it comes to cost. Obviously there's different ways where you wouldn't need to cost, but we're just gonna play it this way that we do actually need it. So right here we then take our time to place Oleg. The main reason that we place Baron first is that we buy Oleg the time to put up his shield, because if he doesn't put up his shield, he's just gonna get one tapped by the boss, and that's not really something we want to happen. And right here then ultimate with Hattsut, bring in a Laurel, whoops. So we can ultimate pretty quickly back to back, but here we're just gonna wait for the Laurels to again be ready. Come on. And there we go. 221 down. Hattsut solo. No need for anyone else besides her. And also gear requirement wise, your Hattsut is pretty strong, so you don't really need as good as the gear shown here. And also, especially if you have a Tumultuous Horn, you can take out the cost generator and just place in Wrath to give her, for example, an even stronger buff. Obviously the 10% stats and a bit of attack speed. And yeah, so if you have a Tumultuous Horn, you don't need Laurel, you don't need Dallin, so you technically have 2 free spots as long as you have a Tumultuous Horn, and the Tumultuous Horn can be on 10, it doesn't need to be 22. So this gear at 319 is going to be super simple. We're just going to be showing off dealing with the right side, and for this one we're going to use our early game Hattsut build. Yes, our Hattsut with 90% crit, 66% crit damage, over 200% attack, 0 attack speed, a 10 Idrit's Gaze, but obviously max skilled. And there's 2 important things, mainly 3. If your Hattsut is struggling with killing the enemies on the right side, it might not be your gear, it might just very well be skill ups, because either the defense down is super strong, or just the ultimate multipliers. So if your Hatsu is struggling, just give her more skill crystals. The second part also has to do with her skills, and that is the fact that you need to be careful when you place her. So if your Hatsu isn't max skilled, you need to place her a bit after the enemies already appeared, because your invisibility is going to run out while the enemies are on top of your Hatsu, and then they're just going to kill her, so keep that in mind. And for the third part, at least when it comes to 20 and 21, at least when it comes to gear 20, because at 19 you can't really expect it, but don't use Ancient Wrath on 19, on 20 it's not gonna work, because your Hatsu doesn't reach, so she can't build up the stacks. So yeah, right here, we just played through the fight, killed the boss, And you're going to be able to, if you play it properly, have a Laurel on the field. So not only is it going to be a Hattsut, but your Hattsut is also going to get a 20% damage buff from Laurel. So yeah, stat-wise, obviously the set isn't anything impressive. We're going to just have her apply the defense down to all enemies, let them get close, and then activate the ultimate. And as you can see, we even had around 1/3 of the ultimate still left. And Hattsut without any set, broken set, at a plus 10. Idrit's Gaze was just able to take care of the right side, which is obviously mind-boggling. So on to the next stage. Next off, 320, which is going to be a Hattsut with, honestly, it's pretty decent gear. So we have a bit of attack speed, 170, we have rather decent crit rate at 94%, rather high crit damage at 140%, and also again 200% attack, as well as our usual Idrit's Gaze at plus 10, which obviously could be replaced with be it a Bloodborne Signet, or obviously if you have it, Aureate Visage, Hatsut's exclusive artifact. Right, so again, 1v1 showdown, Hattsut versus the right side. The biggest problem here is the fact that I let my Aegis stay on the field a bit too long, so she already attacked that enemy quite hard. But I don't think it should be too much of a problem. We should see the difference in between Hattsut and the enemies. But yeah, we're obviously going to let the attacks bounce, let the enemies come in close, have Laurel active with the 20% damage buff, and throughout the ultimate you can see we were pretty much able to kill that enemy. We could have, for example, waited for one more bounce, or then just used Idril to kill the right side. So this is not quite minimum requirements, but honestly pretty close to when it comes to dealing with 320. So now it's time for 321. Alrighty, so 321. Obviously, first off, Nyx. Nyx's skill is just good enough to help her kill the left side. Does it need a big Nyx? No, you could use any other AoE marksman, be it Razak, Maul, whoever you have, really. Then Idril obviously is running a bit too good gear to make it a close run, but it's a bit too bothersome trying to sort through gear, trying to make it a run that just, for all intents and purposes, is supposed to just look close. But yeah, right here we have pretty decent stats. You could even go higher in crit damage, lower in attack because you have your Dolores. And also obviously we're running in Idrit's Gaze. Then we have Liam. Giga Chat Liam, at least for the moment, doesn't even really have gear. So let's see if we can't fix that a bit. Who has? Then we have Liam. Liam is going to be running a pretty standard high attack speed and then a high rage region build. Artifact, he's not gonna need one. Obviously we have Lunaria for the Lord bonus. Hattsut. So this Hattsut is a bit too strong for this fight. So she should be able to completely annihilate the enemies. But also I didn't just try to go out of my way to make it like super close. Because at the end of the day, Idril can also just help out on the right side. And we also have Lucas later down the line. Artifact wise, we're going to be using in Idrit's Gaze. You could also be using a Bloodborne Signet or an Aureate Visage. All of them are going to be able to do their job just fine. And then obviously next up we have Volker. Volker is going to be running a tank set because we need her to tank damage. Laurel is just going to be having an invigoration set. Same goes for Dolores. Dolores is also going to be rocking an invigoration set, but it's definitely not required. And artifact wise, let's get away from Tumultuous Horn already. It's good enough. Let's go with Keen Wisdom. Hollow is going to be the same high attack speed, high rage region, a low attack. Artifact wise, again, just a golden scarab for even more rage region. And then we have right here Elucas. The only thing you need to know is that you need to max out his ultimate, and you preferably want to have a map promotion too for the increased range. So yeah, I think that should be everything settled. Settled. There we go. Let's clear 121. So we're going to just open up with Idril, bring in our Dolores, and then already bring in Liam. As soon as Dolores hits 95%, we can ult with her, as well as ult with Idril. Bring in Laurel, take out Laurel, And then also already put in Hollow. Hollow's just there to tank the hits, give some more rage regen, and just overall make this fight a bit smoother. So right here we wait for the middle enemy to die, then ultimate with Dolores. Can we wait a bit longer with the tanking? We could. Honestly, we should be fine. Right here we can already activate Idrit's ultimate, bring in some more rage regen, or less of it. And with the timing, we took out the shot that should have hit Nyx, so Nyx is going to be able to tank one more shot. And right here we can activate Nyx's ultimate to make Idrit's shot more powerful, so we can take out the right side. And then just continue taking care of the enemies. Now the boss is going to move closer, which is going to be your sign to bring in Tank Volker. And yeah, Tank Volker is just gonna chill there and tank. So yeah, right here again, if your Hattsut isn't fully max skilled, you might need to change your timing a bit, or your Hattsut is going to get visible while the enemies are still moving. So again, I highly recommend max skilling your Hattsut. Because right here we can bring in Hattsut, and what you can see is that Hattsut is already hitting the enemies, which is different compared to stage 20 and stage 19, and also the reason why Ageless Wrath works particularly well here, because you can just stack it. And then right here we're just going to have a look, and we should be fine with putting in Laurel. There shouldn't be anyone, or the boss shouldn't shoot Laurel before we want it to happen. So yeah, right here we're going to wait for the middle enemy to get shot, so that guy is out of the way. Then use the ultimate from Hattsut, Dolores, take out Laurel. And I mean, you can see it. We are at the third ultimate left, and everything dies. And honestly, that's the part where, as long as she's max skilled or even close to max skilled, you can give her worse gear. It's not really going to matter. The enemies are going to die either way. Furthermore, you have the choice to just either take her out and put a Lucas right here, or put a Lucas right here just in general. And honestly, she's just going to take care of the enemies. And even if not, have a look at your Idra. Your Idra is still fully ult ready, and especially with the added ultimate that a Lucas brings, because his ultimate is triggering instantly by placing him, you would be able to completely annihilate all of those taunting target enemies, whatever thingies you wanna call them. And then you should be able to just take care of those even if your Hattsut is weaker. Now, one thing that is or could change is the strength of your Idril. The stronger your Idril, the faster you can kill the boss. And if you can kill the boss fast enough before this guy moves, you have a significant advantage. But even if you can't, honestly, it's not all too bad. You could also just, for example, even face your Hattsut down or up and place her earlier so she can help take care of that dude. So there's a lot of things you can do, but in general, honestly, if you like just get a strong Idril, get a decent enough Hattsut, skill her, and you're not really gonna have any problems. And right here, let's just take out Idril just so we can use Hattsut to do the last bit. There we go. Easy peasy. 321 down, and Hattsut once again proved that she is ridiculous by taking on every single gear rate in the entire game, besides, at least for the moment, Gear Dungeon. But as long as they give us reduced physical resistances with any core mechanic in the future, even Hattsut should be able to be super strong in Gear Rate 3, Gear Rate 4, whatever. So yeah, Gear Rate 3 done. Alright, Hattsut Guild Boss time. If you're curious about the gear, have a look. So we have an Invigoration set on Torador. He's not that important. A pretty good Soulbound Arcana set on Arrogance, as well as a 25 Ram tier. A pretty good Infernal Roar set on Lust. Sovereign Arcana set on Hattsut. In this case, again, high attack and also still rather high crit damage. And you could go even higher in crit damage because the defense of the guild boss really isn't anything too crazy. And also here we're just going to go with the Bloodborne Signet because we might as well. It's not that we really need to reduce the enemy defense anymore. Dolores gear, you should have already seen it, but yeah, Invigoration set, high attack, keen wisdom, Araka, just there. Do we have another Invigoration set anywhere? Because if I can, I might as well. Let's just turn this into an Invigoration set, why not? There we go. Invigoration set on Araka. Hex, unsurprisingly enough, also Servant Arcana set, artifact wise, 25 Spirit Siphon, Silas, pretty strong Infernal Roar set, stat wise, you can see them right here, and also another Spirit Siphon. Hollow again, Guild Boss build, high attack speed, high rage region, low attack, Golden Scarab, and a Laurel, also with our usual Invigoration set. So yeah, let's just start. Didn't do my guild boss fight for today anyway, so might as well combine the two. Productive. So yeah, whoops. So yeah, Sealers in Invigoration buff, Hex Invigoration buff. Why might as well. Hattsut Invig buff. Lust Invig buff, and Arrogance is just gotta, he just gotta survive without one then. Alright. So yeah, here we could have probably triggered Hatsut's ultimate a bit earlier already, but it's also not like we're going to lose out on all too much by doing so. So yeah, obviously with Hatsut's placement, she doesn't really benefit from Laurel, but we already have the max number of people around her anyway, and that's also the only tile where you can actually place her. So yeah, let's let the fight go and have a look at how Hatsut does. I'm gonna be guessing, especially that we have a Torador too. I'm guessing what damage could be realistic for her to do? Maybe like 60 to 80 million, somewhere in that range. She's gonna be somewhere in the 60 to 80 million range would be my guess. Man, that's some beautiful numbers. A lot of big boy numbers. Might as well just ult with her again, even though Dolores isn't quite ready. Laurel in, and wait for all the ultimates to be activated so we don't waste a charge. And out. There we go. Torador, it's time to shine, even in Dolores range, not that he actually has a gear set that does damage. But yeah, another Hattsut ultimate. So one of the major things Hattsut does is she ults a lot. And one of the benefits of someone ulting a lot is obviously Lust getting stronger. So if you're running Lust, running a Hattsut with her isn't even that bad of an idea, because you're just going to get a lot of ultimates out of her, which means a lot of talent triggers, which then means a lot of damage and also potential death breaks if you do happen to have her at A1. Right here we can probably take out Torador because there's not really going to be a lot happening when it comes to ult usage. So we can just place him in earlier by the next time. Ooh. I'm probably gonna wait with ultimates here again because Silas is basically ready. Lust is basically ready. Take her out. Ult right here. Could have also probably ulted a bit earlier with Hattsut, but honestly it's not like we're really going to min-max. Just going to have a look at what her potential is gonna look like. There she is ready again, even without any buffs. And Torador time. Okay, shield done. Might as well make full use. Ooh, I can't even see the numbers. I'm pretty curious about how much damage he does there. So I should have probably just kept Torador in the way he was. But yeah, we should be fine. So obviously isn't a completely perfect run, but I guess that's also not really the point. Another ultimate, crossing 60k damage. And we're probably not gonna get Torador in again. Can we get another Dolores boosted ultimate off? Unlikely. So yeah, we also got a bit unlucky when it comes to Dolores trigger timings here, but I think that's fine. The fact that Dolores died at the end here also kind of summarizes this run pretty well. But 66k damage. Let's have a look at what Hattsut actually did by her save. So, what did she do? 64. Honestly, for the fact that she's a ranged unit, it's not that bad. It's kind of like Salazar-ish territory. Obviously, if you min-max it a bit, it could have been higher. So something closer to 65, 66, 67, 70 million. But obviously, Hattsut is not made for single target damage, which you can kind of see in comparison to obviously Lust and Arrogance. But still, she's not bad. She is definitely usable in Guild Boss, but she's not crazy. So while we're already at it talking about content where Hattsut is good, obviously Hattsut is also going to shine in Void, especially in the stages where you're required to do physical damage or obviously piercing damage. And she's gonna be really good there. You can really play around with the invulnerability, and also in the should you pull ban video, like I said, you can really make use of her in the Shadowkeeper phase to take out those annoying mages, because with her invisibility, they're not going to hit her. You can just activate her ultimate and she should be able to one-shot them, especially and also obviously if you have the gear for it. Besides that, honestly, she's really easy to use. You're going to find a lot of usage, and probably also one of the more memorable stages are going to be the stages in the phase 2 of the Torador phase. So especially this week, and that is because you can kill all those skeletons that multiply by just placing her in, ulting with her, and also she's going to stay invisible, so the mages are also not going to take her out. Next off, also we obviously have Faction Trial. Trial of the Nightmare, or Trial of Nightmare, honestly is probably really hard without Hattsut or Arrogance, but if you have either or, you should be fine, and I think the placement to place her in that Trial of Nightmare is going to be pretty obvious, and you should be able to figure that one out, because there's legit only one place where she's going to be able to hit both lanes and all the enemies that just stand around. So yeah, Trial of Nightmare, she's probably really essential, and it just makes it way easier. Resource rate, I don't think we need to talk about them. Promotion rate, obviously she's going to be destroying everyone and everything in the Insignia of Marksman. Tide, who needs to talk about Tide? AMR. Now, honestly, AMR might very well be the only piece of content where she's weak, and that's just because if we take a look at the map info, if you place her on the only range tile, her ultimate is not going to reach the boss unless you block the boss not half tile, but then that cuts you out of the 4 tiles. So honestly, you could probably even use her for AMR, but I'm not gonna bother. You're probably going to be able to beat AMR using her, but I mean, you should be able to do better things, as well as considering the fact that the boss is only one dude, so you can't trigger the defense down. But yeah, AMR, she's probably even going to work there if you really wanna go that way, but at that point just use someone else. Obviously, Hatsut's usage doesn't just stop there. Let's continue with GVG. Even in GVG, she finds a place in one of the most meta defenses, which is going to be a Nightmare defense running A-Bomb, Arrogance, Hattsut, Torador, and then whatever healer you have, be it Hollow, Gwendolyn, it doesn't really matter. So the healer is really variable, probably also Carnelian. Carnelian is really disgusting in the team. But in general, she only really works in GVG if you have a Torador. So if you don't have a Torador, you shouldn't really worry about trying to implement her in your GVG defense. But the main reason again why she's so strong is going to be the basic attacks reducing the enemy defense, then allowing arrogance to just shred, and also obviously once they pass your defenders, the ability to just annihilate them completely. For example, if it's like aerial units. So yeah, GVG, ridiculous, overall ridiculousness. From one ridiculous content into the next one. Arena, arena wise, there's 2 arenas, so 66% of all the arenas you're going to see a Hattsut. I mean, there's some degenerates that use her in single target arena, and it actually works to some extent, but she's mainly relegated to AoE and anti-air arena. And then build wise, if you really want to run her in arena, you really want to make sure that where do I have my build? There we go. You really want to make sure that you have a significant amount of attack and the crit damage isn't as important. And also set wise, you really only have the choice between Ageless Wrath and Sorbonne Arcana. And for Sorbonne Arcana, you would need to place her earlier. Also, artifact wise, same choices: Bloodborne Signet, Aureate Visage, or again, Idrit's Gaze, with Idrit's Gaze just being pretty good. And also, especially if you're not going to use a Dolores in your arena run, just use her. So, honestly, arena, she's probably going to be a no-brainer. So, if you take a look at this, as far as I'm concerned, this should signify that 90% of people are using Hattsut. Let's have a look at the highest league, which is going to be 86% of Apex Overlord anti-air DPS players. And where's Hattsut? Does she have a space? So she's not as popular for AoE DPS, but she's still more popular than someone like Volcra, for example, which is rather impressive. But yeah, mainly anti-air DPS. You can use her in AoE, and I mean, let's have a look. Can we check single target if she actually exists somewhere in single target? I doubt it, but there's always some weird people. Let's have a look at Overlord. There you go. Overlord. 12% of people using a Hattsut. Number 20 in single target DPS. I told you. Alright, on the note of codex, is there any codex where Hattsut is particularly strong? Conqueror, she can't be placed. Wasteland Titan, she doesn't really do healing. Boreas, she doesn't really debuff DOT or damage over time debuff. And for Zealous, for the obviously for Soul Guidance, she's no tank, and for Zealous, she doesn't necessarily hit enough. If her attacks could bounce between him and something else, maybe that would be better. But yeah, Hattsut isn't really a codex character, so I guess that's a weakness. So besides AMR, if you don't want to force it, and codex, she's not really a character for that. So yeah, I think this concludes this Hattsut guide. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you pull her tomorrow if you do go for her. And in general, if you've enjoyed this content, feel free to leave a like, sub, leave a comment, share it with whoever you want, and we see each other in the next one.